Hi, welcome to the Curious Midlife podcast, the show that brings you conversations for the multi-passionate Renaissance woman. I'm here to inspire you to create a new sense of self by daring to be creative in everything you do, and to see the world as a playground to move, explore, discover, and enjoy at any age. I help busy midlife women reclaim and increase their physical strength and confidence. Get your mojo back so you can feel brave and adventurous again and age with grace. I'm your host, Dr. Julie Angel, movement coach, filmmaker, eternal student, author of the book Breaking the Jump, and creator of the MAP system. Stay curious, creative, and strong. Enjoy the show. So hi, welcome to today's episode, and I feel very fortunate to have my dear friend Louise Carr with me. So welcome, Louise, and tell us, what do you do? What's your story? What brought you here today?
Well, thank you for inviting me, Julie, and congratulations on starting your podcast. I'm very excited for you. My name's Louise Carr. You can tell from my voice, I'm also from the UK. I live in Canada currently, and I am a certified holistic nutrition consultant. Um, I work mainly with midlife women, and we use food and nutrition in order to support midlife women through the natural process of perimenopause. I haven't always been in nutrition. My story is that I came to the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition looking for answers for issues with my own health. So I found myself at 46 years old completely exhausted, couldn't exercise anymore because I was so exhausted after exercise. I had varicose veins. I sat around the house sighing a lot and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I felt very blue. I was completely overwhelmed. I was starting to not enjoy life at all. So, if we had something, we're a family of five, if we had something such as we're going camping or we're going to a cabin, fun stuff like that, I would dread because I felt so overwhelmed by everything that needed to be done in order for us to have fun. And it was actually that loss of joy in my life that drove me to the doctor's office. I'm like, what's going on? I'm overweight. I was 200 pounds. I was almost 200 pounds by then. What's going on? And they did extensive blood tests and told me that there was nothing wrong with me, that I should expect to feel this way at my age, and that I needed to lose weight. I needed to eat less and exercise more. And I was fully aware I had been dieting since I was 15 years old, on and off. And I'd done the Atkins diet and I'd done Weight Watchers, everything, you name it, I've done it. And that I couldn't exercise because I was so exhausted. And I knew something was really wrong with my body. And I just had a voice in the back of my head scream, no, no. I couldn't imagine aging from this place at 46 years old, to be unable to exercise, to be so heavy, with the varicose veins. I was aware even at that point in time, the body is holistic. So if my veins are not doing great, my heart is not doing great, because all of that cardiovascular system is joined together. So I knew I didn't want to go downhill from that place. And I was driving in my car and I heard an ad on the radio for the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. I opened a free magazine in my city and I saw an ad for the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. And I'm like, this could be the thing that can help me right now. And I'm getting a message here. And so I ended up going for an interview a week before the course started, the year-long course. Managed to get in, and my big worry at that point in time is, where would I find the energy to go to school. I was so exhausted, so depleted. I had such fuzzy thinking. I was like, how now you've just put one more thing on your plate? But I knew it was imperative to get myself there. And I spent the entire year just having aha moments and learning about my own body, information I didn't know that we don't know about. We live in this body, we own this body, it is ourselves, and we know so little about it. So it really was a very wonderful education. I learned so much about food and nutrition. I made such great friends, and immediately I started changing the way I fed myself. I started thinking about the food that I was eating more mindfully. I started eating more food, and I started to release weight. So I immediately saw a turnaround from the changes that I was making. And every time I sat in the class and I'm like, no, no, just food. You can do that with food. And I didn't trust the power of food and nutrition. I proved to myself over and over again that we are what we eat, and there is power in the food that we eat. Um, so I never really anticipated starting or running a business. All of that came after I had worked on my own health. And really, after, I think it was a year after nutrition school, when I was fired from the vein clinic, I was back for my regular ultrasound, look at my legs, and they're like, do you know what? You're wasting our time and we're wasting your time with you coming back. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you now. And I had done that by supporting my cardiovascular health with food and nutrition. And when we look at the chronic diseases that we have in society today, so many of them really just need us to change our diet and pay attention to our food and our nutrition. Heart disease and type 2 diabetes, and um, or insulin resistance, the precursor, fatty liver disease. We really all should be thinking more about the fact that we are what we eat. Yeah, and I wound up specializing in my work with midlife women, and supporting them through perimenopause, because that's really, I think, where I have the most empathy and the most experience from my own journey. And I just think that midlife women rock. They have the best stories. They are the most empathetic people. They have the best sense of humor. I could talk for hours with midlife women. I enjoy us so much. So I love the job that I do.
And I love it. And I think there are so many of us who we became curious about what was going on with ourselves, and that it's that own self-exploratory that then leads to the education, and then the education leads to the transformation, and then the transformation leads to the like, I need to share. And we meet people in our own fields where we're just like, you really don't need to keep suffering. And having this kind of paradigm shift in thinking. And it's incredible that, considering half the population who, if we have, the privilege to age, don't know anything, hardly anything about what is a completely natural process, what are the warning signs, we should look out for, and ultimately then what the solutions are. And it seems like, when you've kind of gone through those journeys like we have done, it's just like, this is incredible that there is this giant educational black hole, and there are these myths that you just need to kind of suffer, and it's somehow normal, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, it just don't get me started, Julie.
Oh, we can go there. We can go there. Let's go there.
It is incredible to me that we get to midlife and we don't know what's happening to our bodies, and that when quite often when you approach the medical profession, and certainly your first line when you go to your doctor doesn't know he can't explain. There is very little education there in your healthcare provider. I know in Canada here, I think It's 3 hours is spent on menopause within GP or general practitioner training, and less is spent on nutrition. So there aren't even solutions that you can use for yourself at home, because there's no education on food and nutrition. So there's a massive black hole, not just for us but within our healthcare providers. And so we're offered medications. In the past, antidepressant is overprescribed for midlife women, because also there's that patriarchal view that if you're in the office whining and complaining and feeling blue, just shut this woman up with an antidepressant, many of which have only been tested on men and haven't been tested on women, because the science isn't even there on the most basic level. So we are kind of operating in this void of information. And I just try and share as much as I can and as often as I can exactly what is happening inside our bodies, so that we understand what is happening to our hormones. It is something that our mothers didn't talk about. That in itself is another patriarchal kind of shut up and put up situation that they went through. And I think in the past, women uh, got together in groups, shared information about herbs, shared information about what kept them healthy, supported each other in pregnancy and in perimenopause. And we just don't have that anymore. We've been divided from each other, and we're left with no information. Yeah, so it is a natural hormonal process, and there isn't any woman out there in the world that does not have the intelligence to understand what is happening to her own body. And she deserves to know what is happening to her own body.
I agree. And it's always been really shocking to me that there are medications that are out there on the market that are given to women that have never been tested on women. That
Yeah,
just seems to me like a wholly unethical, irresponsible practice and
yeah,
system that is just out of whack. And I understand some of the historical text around thalidomide and
yeah.
those kind of issues around, well, we used to a little bit, and then, well, we did this, and then that was harmful. But you can't discount half the population, and you, by God,
That's
shouldn't
exactly.
prescribe something to those people who have. So let's get down to like the real nuts and bolts. So like, how are we different? Why am I not just a little man? Medically, hormonally, if what works for that man over there, why wouldn't it work for me? Am I not just a little man in a bikini? Bikini medicine.
Bikini medicine. Oh my goodness, I don't know where to start with that, Julie. It's overwhelming. Um, uh, Women have always been seen as a little man with different parts. I was astounded just the other week to see it was in the, I think I was looking at the BBC, and it was in the tech section of the news, that they were going to start teaching women's anatomy as a separate, rather than just being a little man with a separate anatomy. The way I look at it, I feel very divorced from the kind of standard healthcare provide provisions that are there for me. I feel very divorced from that, having learned a lot about food and nutrition. And the way that I view my body is that I am a completely different being that is moving in cycles, and that I have more relation to the moon and to the ocean that is also responding to these cycles than I do to anything that is being provided as a pharmaceutical to me. So, yeah, I see myself as being very much more part of the ecosystem, responding to my environment, and I will explain why later. But I mean, there's very clear evidence that if you live in a highly polluted area. If you live with very high stress levels from your environment, you will experience your menopause earlier and you will experience it for longer. And we see this with puberty in young girls too. So I see myself as almost porous, like a frog to my environment. Chemicals from my environment are impacting my health and will impact my perimenopausal experience and my daughter's puberty. The moon will impact my perimenopausal experience and my daughter's puberty. What happened to my mother will impact my perimenopausal experience, and maybe my daughter's perimenopausal experience, depending on what happens to me. Although I can change that, I can have a different story. So I see all of those things as having more impact on my body, and and food and nutrition added into that being worth looking at than I do anything that is happening in conventional medicine. I see the quality of the food that I eat. I see the quality of the soil that my food grows in as being more important to my perimenopausal experience than anything that is offered to me as a pharmaceutical. So I'm pretty much I've moved a long way away from ever feeling like I would need a hysterectomy because I'm over this whole process. Take it out. I'm done with it. That to me is a very alien perspective. We
Absolutely.
need all of our parts. We need all of our parts. It's important that we retain our uterus so that we stay continent as we age. We are made this way for a reason, and we need to support and nurture every aspect of our body.
And I think it also comes back to, I think a lot of people, there's a kind of vicious negative feedback loop that I see a lot of people get caught up in. And that's, as you said in your own journey at the beginning, where it takes energy to change. It takes energy to do something new. It takes energy to learn something new and to think about something differently. And when people want to feel differently, it takes a lot of less energy to just take a pill than it.
100%.
And so, but
Spending a year in nutrition school is not the quick fix.
no, and I don't believe, when people have asked me
And
for,
then the continued learning afterwards, because there's more and more information about our microbiome and our brain health, and we are actually finally learning something about women's health. But no, the quick fix is, I think, the man in the white coat has the authority. And when you go into that room, it's hard even to retain your own authority and empowerment around your own body. Um, so you kind of, because also we don't know what's happening to us, we don't know the process that we're going through, so you kind of hand over the authority to this man or woman with the white coat. They tell you what you need and you take it. And then there is this big push at the moment for more support for women at midlife, to talk about menopause, to talk about the symptoms. And I'm right behind that. It needs to come out into the open. The shame needs to be removed from the process. The stigma around aging needs to be removed from the process. We need all of that. But it doesn't mean that we just jump straight into then taking a pill in order to bypass the process. Two things can be true at the same time. We need to know more and talk more about what is happening to us, but we also do not need to, we need to become more empowered in that process rather than giving our power away.
absolutely.
So let's not medicalize something that is been around for thousands of years. Orcas do it too. It's a natural process, a process of natural hormonal change.
Can you just go through a little bit of what is that, like in a nutshell, the roller coaster? What is that natural change, and what are the things that people should be looking out for? Because I know a lot of women who are like, they don't even know they're in perimenopause, or they
Right.
realize, like, maybe like, wow, like I have friends who now with what they know now, they realize I was going through it for 10 years, or 10 years ago, they
Yes,
started to have these things.
yes,
And then again, they were just told, like, oh, something's off. You're just a little bit stressed and you should expect to put on weight and you should expect
yes,
this and you should expect that. So, can you just give
yes.
a quick summary of something which I know is a huge subject into what is actually this process?
I would love to. I would love to share what's happening inside our bodies. And it can be a longer process over a 10-year period. And the first sign that it is happening to you might be that you just feel a bit off. We've been in a cycle for decades since we were teens. We've been in a, hopefully, most of us in a regular cycle. Our environment can also disrupt that. And some of us struggle with that. But when that cycle starts to change, we can start to feel like completely different people, and have a number of small symptoms that we're noticing on a daily basis. So it's important to remember that hormones affect every single part and process in your body. And the more we learn about estrogen, and again, the research is only just starting now for us as women. Didn't come in the past. We're in the learning curve now in 2022. So more information is coming each year. But our hormones travel through the body and they affect every single part and process of our body. Our body is holistic. So this is another area where I disagree with conventional medicine, where you have your gynecologist, you have your endocrinologist. If there's a problem with your moods, you go and see a psychiatrist. If you've got an issue with your brain, blah blah blah. We all know how that the body has been broken down. We as women who have been in this cycle year on year know that the body is all joined up, and our hormones affect us on a month to month basis. We know exactly how we should be feeling at what point in time, and what symptoms are like, oh, that's a sign my period's coming. Oh, my period's over. Here goes my energy. I'm going to get everything done this week. We know how this works. It affects every area of our body. So we know that our body is holistic, but it is not seen that way by conventional medicine. And so when we go through our hormonal change, we then can start hearing about it's going to affect your bone health, it's going to affect your brain health, your libido will crash, it's going to affect your blood sugar balance. So as we move through the change, the symptoms are going to appear in many different areas of our bodies. That's what we know. So our hormones drop over time when we're in perimenopause. Our juicy hormones, our sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone, but they don't drop in a gentle curve. We have to accept that we are animals, just like every other animal on the planet, and our body is actually wired for our survival. So our ovaries will keep on trying. They might miss a month where they produce estrogen or progesterone, but they'll like take the building blocks of hormones and they'll make as much as they can, and then they'll just flood the body with estrogen, and you have a week where you're like, oh my god, I'm just hot whenever I come inside the house, or if I drink a tea I suddenly find myself overheating. That's a sign that your ovaries have gone all out for you that month in order to try and keep the process going for you. So this depletion in hormones is not a gentle curve that comes down to zero and drops down to zero, that you feel, oh, a bit less, bit less, bit less. It's spikes and crashes of hormones as our body is like, no, one more time. I'm going around one more time. And you hear the stories that your mother might tell or other women might tell, was like, I didn't have a period for a whole year and then I had a period and I don't understand why. Well, your ovaries are working on your behalf and just feel like, this is my job, I'm going to keep going. And that's how our bodies work. Our job inside our bodies is to support ourselves to the best of our ability through this process so that we can smooth off the spikes and crashes in hormone that are appearing in our body. And we can do that using rest, self care, and food and nutrition. One thing that I do want to flag is that our hormones of our estrogen and our progesterone and our luteal hormones, they do not happen in isolation. We have other hormones within our body. And the one that really causes us the most difficulty during perimenopause is cortisol, our stress hormone. So our ovaries have been making estrogen for us throughout all of our lives, and they're going to get their well-deserved rest. We will be drip fed estrogen when we are postmenopausal, which helps to keep our brains healthy and our bones healthy. It helps to keep our vaginal health for us and keep us lubricated. It helps to keep our skin healthy. So we are going to receive this drip feed of estrogen, and it is going to be our adrenal glands, some of the weight that we carry on our body, so some fat cells on our body, and some of our nervous system and brain cells will produce estrogen for us so that we just get that baseline level to keep all of our tissues and our brain in and our bones in good health. So our adrenal glands are going to take on this role of creating estrogen, but they are also responsible for creating cortisol, our stress hormone. So they're already doing this other job. And they are wired for survival. So they will take the building blocks of hormones and they will make cortisol every time you are feeling stress before they will make the baseline of estrogen that is going to keep you healthy. So our stress level in perimenopause and our cortisol level is hugely important to us. It is our job to pull on our big girl panties, feed ourselves healthily, give ourselves the rest we need, and calm ourselves down during perimenopause. It is a growth period for us where we actually learn what we want in life and how we need to take care of our bodies. So I'm just going to, Julie, if you don't mind, read out the symptoms of cortisol dominance in the body. So if you are highly stressed, you're not getting the sleep that you want, your diet is erratic, you might be intermittent fasting, you might be over exercising, because the body doesn't differentiate between where a stress comes from. Everything is stress to the body. Not enough food is stress to the body. Having a highly stressful job is stress to the body. Dealing with your in-laws is stress to the body. Driving in difficult traffic is stress to the body. Drinking coffee is stress to the body. The body will spike cortisol whenever any of those things happen. And when cortisol is high in the body, these are the symptoms that we will notice in our body: anxiety, low libido, digestive issues, loss of sleep, craving sugar and carbs, foggy thinking and exhaustion, weight gain around the middle, aching joints and shoulders, depression, and quite often heavy sighing throughout the day. And when you hear those symptoms of high cortisol, they pair exactly with the symptoms of perimenopause that we see. There's 34 symptoms of perimenopause, but a big chunk of them are actually the fact that you have high cortisol in your body as estrogen and progesterone begin to deplete. And when you bring that cortisol level down and the base level of estrogen is allowed to flood the body, your symptoms of perimenopause are relieved.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. And yeah, funnily, this morning I was just on some breath work training, and we were talking about how progesterone is actually a respiratory stimulant and how sleep apnea in menopausal women increases to 20 to 30% of women compared to pre-perimenopause. It's only 10% of women.
Wow.
So these hormones are affecting everything, because how we spend our day is how we sleep at night.
That's right.
And it's all a cycle. And I mean, in my work, I always refer to all this kind of holistic approach as strong resting, because societally we have this idea that, well, rest is for the lazy, rest is
Yes.
weak, rest is not a productive thing to do.
Yes.
And it's all about finding that sweet spot of balance between the stresses and the recovery. And what I see is so many women who are actually so highly stress inoculated, they know how to push through. And they've been pushing through in a depleted state for around about 20, 30 years. Whether it started at school, at work, taking care of the family, and then these multiple demands that are placed on them during midlife. And then they hit perimenopause and they're like, shit, what's happening? And it's like, well, you were kind of running on empty, but you had this
Yes.
really nice survival safety net.
Yeah.
And now there's nowhere to hide.
That's right.
And
That's right.
you get to really see what your baseline health is. So for me, I kind of saw my perimenopausal experience as a litmus test of where I'm at. And it was like, oh shit, I undereat, I overtrain, and that anxiety and tearful mornings and achy joints were not normal. And I'm not
100%.
just quote sensitive or quote oversensitive, and I don't need to just do some more intermittent fasting and go and do some CrossFit. And even though there were highly respected people who were telling me to do that, that would have worked for the man sat next to me, but was
Exactly.
actually the most, not the most, but very damaging advice
100%.
for
Eat
me.
less and exercise more is probably the most damaging advice you can give to a midlife woman. And
I agree.
yeah, you're exactly right that it is perimenopause is the straw that breaks the camel's back for so many women. And it is a litmus test for your health and for your lifestyle, 100%. So, just to share a little bit more of my journey, I did a solid couple of years where I was very diligent with my food and my nutrition, and my health improved dramatically. My cardiovascular health improved, my sleep improved, and I released a lot of weight. But I could not get with my health to where I wanted to be, and I couldn't understand why. Like, I'm drinking all the bone broth, I'm getting my healthy fats, everything that I had learnt in school. And it was only when I got to the point where I had the energy again and clarity of thinking, because I had been in such a stressed turmoil, that I woke up to the fact that I was actually in a pretty toxic relationship and I needed to get out. Um, I wanted to start a business with my nutrition skills, and then I was just being squashed. You're to stay in the home. Why would I waste money on you doing that? You can't make any money in nutrition. All of these things were being said to me, and I was being pushed down. And I woke up to the fact that uh, I had experienced being pushed down for decades, as you said, and I had to make the decision whether I was going to stay in that place or whether I was going to leave. I decided to leave and then started another phenomenal journey with the symptoms of complex PTSD, which I knew nothing about. I am now very trauma informed. I know a lot about my own brain health. I know how to calm my nervous system down. I know everything I need to know about my vagus nerve, and I learned even more that our health depends. Our body is telling us all of the time where our problems are. It is speaking to us all of the time. And for many of us, our body is screaming and we are ignoring our own selves and our own body. And our symptoms are not something to be afraid of. Same with perimenopause. Oh my gosh, I've got hot flashes and I'm gaining weight around the middle. This is not something to be outraged about or afraid about. It is something to pay attention to. Your body is talking to you and you need to be listening. I need to balance my blood sugar level. I need to calm my nervous system down so I have less cortisol in my body. It's an
Definitely.
incredible period of growth, perimenopause. And then now, having dealt with the PTSD, my health is just I is just making phenomenal strides forward. So I'm actually using perimenopause as a period of time to release more weight, to lose more weight. That was really an indicator. The way it was weighing me down, I see it as being synonymous with the relationship I was in. And now there was a bumpy ride coming out of that for numerous reasons to do with brain health. But now I'm on the other side. It's like, oh, I get to release that, and I get to forgive for myself, and I get to forgive myself for the place that I found myself, and I get to release this weight off my body too that has been holding me back for so long. So my energy level is just rising coming through that process. I see perimenopause as a tremendous opportunity for women in midlife to sit down, evaluate, listen to their bodies, decide what they want for the next chapter, and make it happen for themselves. I think when we think about our old age, we all imagine ourselves, wearing white, loose linen clothing and wandering down the beach with our grandchildren or holding hands with our partner. If we want that to happen for us, we need to make it. We need to claim it, and we need to start making changes in perimenopause in order to get to that place and have what we want. And yeah,
I agree. And I think it comes back to this. There's a couple of different things. I mean, it is holistic. There's no singular thing. So when someone's just saying like, I'm all about kind of, you know, like diet, but it's like, well, what about mindset and what about lifestyle? And because this is all like the food of life is everything that we consume, whether it's our environment, whether it's the conversations we have. And I think it's really difficult for a lot of people who are stuck in that nervous system fight or flight. So if they're the tired and wired, because again, it takes
yeah,
energy to change, but then our body is
yeah,
always protecting us. And this is the other thing is
yeah,
that a lot of people, like the shit I hear people say to themselves, or they admit to me that they
yes,
say to themselves. I had one client,
yes,
and she very funnily said, she was like, "Oh, the voice that lives in my head is such an asshole."
yes. And
And
your
I
body
kind of,
feels that as stress. Like we were talking
yes,
about, driving in terrible traffic is stress. The voice in your head is stress, and your body will
yes,
produce cortisol because your body is listening to your brain all of the time.
definitely. And so this idea of kindness, I like to say to people like, consider it an act of bravery. Be brave enough to be kind to yourself. Be brave enough. And it's not, and I think there's so much, like there's so many extremes with so many things in across everyday life at the moment. But this idea that you can be kind to yourself and you can listen doesn't mean it's magical thinking.
No.
It doesn't mean that you're kind of, well, if I think it, it will happen. I really think it's a daily practice of listening, a daily practice of what is nourishing you, being aware of what is depleting you, and then how many times are you going to repeat this same old behavior that is going to not serve you? Because if you want to feel differently, then you have to do something differently. And I think a lot of people think that it has to be this really big thing. Like you
Yeah.
suddenly, I don't know, like the thing that I hate. is when people talk about detoxes, I'm like, your body's not toxic. You're not toxic. like, like, stop it, please. Like, like if go and look at the drain outside. Something there might be toxic,
Yes.
but you're not toxic. Your body is not toxic. Our body always wants to heal, and there is no separation of mind and body. And like the neuroscience that's coming out now is just so cool.
It is.
It's kind of like validating what
Yes.
all the Taoists were saying
Yes.
thousands of years ago,
Yes.
and
The science.
and I love it.
The science is arriving now, but we always knew it isn't magical thinking. It
Yeah.
is very real, and we always knew it was there, and we have proved it in science, and we called it the placebo effect. Because if you give someone a little white sugar pill and tell them it's doing something to their body, there will be change. They have to factor in for the placebo effect. So we always knew the mind body connection was there. We just went, oh, that's
Eh.
unhelpful. No,
Well, it's
it's
also
really
like,
helpful.
that it takes effort.
Yes.
It takes effort to undo those habits,
Yes.
of the stories that we have told ourselves,
Yes.
the stories that we hold on to.
Yes.
And I know something that kind of one of the things you're passionate about as well is this idea of kind of like being the good girl,
Yes.
like hanging on to that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
speak a little bit to that.
Well, when we talk about things that aren't normal in our world, which we've talked a lot about, these symptoms aren't normal, it's a natural hormonal change. Some of the ways that we're living are not normal, and we cannot be our full and real selves. So, living under the patriarchy, as we all are currently, we tend to lose our voice, we get talked over, we get bypassed, and we've seen this in science and in medical science. We touched on that, but we also are forced into this role of being the good girl, where we do everything for everyone else. We try not to cause trouble. We try not to anger the people around us. We try and keep everyone else happy, and then by the time we get to midlife, we're the sandwich generation. So we're trying to keep the generation above happy and the generation below happy, and we're stretched in two different directions. We may already have given a lot of ourselves away during the process of having a family and having children. And we really need to make the effort to claim that back once our children are grown, and step out of this role of doing everything and enabling every other person in life to have what they want in life, whilst we are missing out and not getting what we want and not speaking up, and generally just pushing our own needs and pleasure and desire down. We need to step out of that and start causing a little bit of trouble and find our voice and speak up. Um, it's no
I think, yeah, rebel,
coincidence.
cause trouble. I'm all for it.
There's no coincidence that so many of us have thyroid, so many women have thyroid issues, and men do not have. There is not the prevalence of thyroid issues in the half of the population that is allowed to speak and be semi-abusive towards women and grab them by the pussy or say this or say that and vocalize exactly what they want, talk over other women during work meetings and take people's ideas. It's no coincidence that we are the sex without the voice, and then we're like, oh, I need a pill to because my thyroid and it's autoimmune, so you've turned against yourself. We need to really find our voice and start being comfortable with creating new boundaries. When I say we need to put our big girl pants on during perimenopause in order to protect our health, the work I'm talking about is really boundaries and just lopping off those adult kids. No, you can manage that by yourself, giving them their autonomy instead of finding meaning in our lives, in a role of doing everything for still doing everything for our kids, accepting that they're grown adults, and this time is now your free time. This money is now your money to spend on a massage, or going somewhere alone to an Airbnb in the woods and just having some quiet time after raising those kids. It's boundary work is a lot of what we need to do. I speak with quite often with clients who experience excessive bleeding during perimenopause. Um, and that is something that we are dealing with to balance the hormones using food and nutrition. That's the way I work with them. But another question that I always ask them when I come across this symptom in a woman's body is, where else are you bleeding out in life? That gives them the opportunity. They come back the following week and they're like, I told my husband I need to rest. I can't do any of that. He wants me to go here and here, and I can't do that anymore, not while I'm going through this process. And so I had the whole day just with my book in bed, and I had the dog on the bed, and it was bliss. And it's like, yes, that you're listening now to your body, and that is what you're needing. But yeah, much of the work, I think, is to not only nourishing ourselves deeply with food and nutrition, but starting to lay boundaries in so that we can have space for some of the things we desire in life, and just free time and downtime. There's so many women that are just running themselves ragged.
Yeah, and I see that, and I feel very fortunate that I've always been, or I was always encouraged from a very young age just to question authority at every corner, at every moment, and I'm not particularly a people pleaser, and that has really been a huge asset to me in midlife because
Yeah,
I haven't had this, and also it doesn't mean you're not compassionate, you're not kind, but I also think that there's a place where radical responsibility and just being really stupidly honest with yourself about, well, what did you allow to happen and where did you take responsibility for that, and kind of not going into a victimhood about
yeah,
kind of where am I and what do I think, and aren't all these things awful? And a lot of times it's like, well, yes, they are awful, but it always comes down to, well, what are you going to do next? What what
yeah,
what is, and what is the baby step? What is the next act of micro
yes,
bravery for yourself that
yes,
that you could implement that is sustainable? Because, and I'm sure
100%.
you hear this with your clients as well, and I hear this with clients, and they'll say, well, I did this thing and that worked really well for me, and I'll say, like, oh, what was it? And it'll be like, it could be some weight loss thing or some boot camp thing or some movement thing, and I'll say, like, well, are you doing it now? And they say, oh no, well, I couldn't keep it up, it was too inconvenient,
Yeah,
and it wasn't this, da, da.
yeah,
So people are looking for things which don't fit into their lives, they're too radical, they're too extreme, and I'm always like, that mid ground is really sexy, that mid ground
yeah,
can be like
yeah,
so cool.
yeah,
And can we just stop this celebration of extremes? Can we stop
yeah,
that and just get, like, for me, like, moderation is like the new cool. It's just like,
yeah,
and there's nothing weird, like, so, I've dialed in my health, and I've been very fortunate in that, had I not had two of my best friends be holistic health coaches, then I would have just been another woman with a shitty perimenopause and menopause, and would have carried on crying, and would have lost
yeah,
muscle, and just accepted, like, well, I'm just a bit batshit crazy some of the time, and
yeah,
that's just how it is, and I get a bit
yeah.
depressed, and whew, gosh, yeah, those women in magazines look like they've got it sorted, but, well, never mind,
Well, I mean,
you know. So I mean, that's a lot to unpack. But in
yes,
terms of, if we don't have access to this knowledge, and we don't have a bedrock where it can be really challenging to change our ideas, to be open to this idea of, well, what do you mean? Like, it's like I'll say stuff to my mum and she'll say, well, my doctor never told me that.
oh,
So for example, this isn't, related to midlife. So she had a full hip replacement,
right,
and she was told, like, you need to do these exercises. And she was very diligent and she would do them. She was very keen to get back out on the golf course as soon as possible. And so she'd say like, oh, well, I did that little walk down the road and I came back and I was fine. And she said, so, oh, I thought I may do another one. And I was like, no, you were told after a walk, you need to lie on the bed for 20 to
Yeah.
30 minutes. I was like,
Yeah.
Mum, you don't realize when you're walking, you're stressing and breaking down those tissues.
Yeah.
The bits when you rebuild are when you're lying on
Yeah.
the bed. And she
That's
was like,
right.
and it rings in my ears. She's like, well, Julie, no one's ever told me that. And again, it's kind of like you can't only have one side of the coin. When it's a whole coin, you need the other side. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
when I know people who want to up their exercise, I'm like, have you got enough, but can you get enough sleep in?
Yes.
You can't bring in that and think you're going to get stronger if you're not prepared to rest more, because all you're doing is
Yes.
then feeding a negative feedback cycle of depletion.
Yes. Yes.
And as we know and agree and preach, it's like there's only one cortisol. Body doesn't care what the trigger
Exactly.
is, doesn't
Yeah.
care. And it's all
Yeah.
about this balance of, I also
That's
know people who can get really obsessed with their nutrition. And even if on paper they're doing all the right
oh,
things,
yes.
they
Yes.
won't improve because they're in this high stress control freak mode.
Yes.
So we're
And I
complex. It's everything.
yes, we are complex.
Everything's going on.
We are complex, and I think you have to walk by your own side as you pass through many of these different phases. And
Yes.
all of this is growth.
Yeah.
So I know for me, when I went into nutrition school, it was overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
We started week one with the vitamins, and just with my fuzzy brain trying to memorize each one of them, I was completely overwhelmed. And if at that point in time, if I had been given the information about what was to come, that when my energy came back, I then saw that my environment and my relationship was really unhealthy for me, I think I would have just crawled into a hole in the ground and not really seen how I could get through it all. So you just have to take, as you say, baby steps, one step at a time. And just be compassionate and walk by yourself through that process. And when it comes to food and nutrition, the example I always give, because I share a lot of information with women when we meet, we do a nutritional consult, I learn about their symptoms and their bodies, and then I try and share as much information as I can, because I feel so strongly that we should know what's happening to our bodies. And they are always grateful for that information. But it's a lot of information. I mean, we've covered so much ground just today. And then this, the thing, the next step after that is to take the first baby step and to kind of calm a woman down and say, you don't have to do it all. If you even just do one thing, it's going to make a tremendous impact on the body. So the example I always give is, if let's say you decide that the only thing that you are going to do is have a green smoothie on a daily basis. And I always recommend make them all in one go, stack them up in mason jars in your refrigerator. Don't do that shit every day, do it once in the week. And yes, that nutrition is depleting, I understand that, but you're still getting all the fiber and you're getting a good dose of nutrition. And if you were to go and buy a juice from the store, you don't know where it was made, how long it was traveling on a truck, what temperature it got to, and how long it's been in the store. So, make it at home, but only do it the once. And then you've made that change in your lifestyle. And it's like, if you were to fly from LA and you're going to New York, and the pilot was to shift by 1 degree, your destination, you'd be up in Toronto or, up in Gander. Your destination will change. And just by the shift of 1 degree on the devices during that length of a flight. And it's the same with our health. Change one thing, and the destination where you end up when you are moving into older age is going to be phenomenally different than if you did nothing at all. So
I
Just
love that analogy. I really love that. I always say to people, like you wouldn't try to drive from, whether it's in the UK, like you wouldn't try and drive from like Plymouth to London, or in the States, you wouldn't try to drive from San Diego to San Francisco or LA, like with an empty tank of petrol gas. You just
yes,
wouldn't.
yeah,
Or if you did, you wouldn't be surprised if the car started making funny sounds, if you broke
yes,
down, if you then had to ask for help, if things became really,
yes,
really stressful, if
yes,
nothing
yes,
happened as you wanted to, because this idea that we should be doing it all, we should be go, 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 and you need to be, you need to be having these 80 to 100% days all the time, where I'm like,
yeah,
I'm a real fan of the science of small wins. I'm all about
yeah,
like the 1 to 10% days, because if I can
yeah.
consistently have a one
It's
to 10%
consistency.
day,
Yeah,
it's like compound
yeah,
interest.
yeah,
Do
exactly
you
right.
want me to give you $10,000 once, or do you want me to give you a 1% increase on $1 for the rest of your lifetime?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's
yeah,
kind of like there's a big reward there, but we need to take these tiny steps. We need to know what they are, and we need to go, and it's okay to go, this is completely overwhelming and I'm really, really confused, because
yeah,
there's also a lot of uh, there's a lot of noise now in this female health space around
yes,
perimenopause and menopause. And
yes.
as always, science is conflicting. And that's a really good thing, because science is an ongoing
Science is
process and debate.
changing
That is the
all of the
scientific
time.
method.
That
Science is
is
never
exactly right.
known. Like
Yeah,
anyone who's like, nope, this
yeah,
can't question. I'm like,
yeah.
shut up. That's not science.
That's
This is
right.
this is what we know at this moment in time. And we know it until it's unknown, and we can reproduce it and change it and test it more. So that's like, my dad was a nuclear physicist. I've heard all about what science is. So, yeah, it's very. So, what are, I think we've talked about the fact that we both celebrate that, there is more discussion in this space now around this, but let's go to the dark side. What concerns you with what we're seeing around women, hormones, buying stuff in shops? What are you seeing, and what are some alarm bells?
Well, the big alarm bell for me is the medicalization of a perfectly natural process. And within that big alarm bell, there are, let's break it down. It is a process. I talked earlier on about how your hormones are changing all of the time, and spiking and crashing. So when you do go, let's say your doctor is like, let's do a test and we'll have a look at where your hormones are at. All you are getting is a snapshot of your hormones at that point in time. So even if you have been prescribed, or you choose to go and buy over the counter, decide for yourself that you need a little bit of HRT, then and you decide what you're going to buy. Um, you are buying something that will have an impact on your body at that point in time. But it is a transient process. It is changing throughout the process. Your hormones are going to deplete, and you lose sight of the process. You're unable to navigate where you are because you're overriding the process. And what your body needs is going to change over time, because your hormones are changing over time. So I have like alarm bells within alarm bells, and I'm all for women being empowered around the process. So here you have, oh, women are going to be empowered around this. They're going to be able to go out and buy what they need. the medical Our medical doctors don't have the information to tell us what we need right now. It's a changing process over time. So what we're going to need is going to change over time.
Mhm.
And how are we going to know what we need to change things over time when we do have the phenomenal power of food and nutrition to provide our bodies with what with what they need. So we have foods where we can actually increase the amount of estrogen in the body in a gentle way. It is gentle estrogen. It is not a manufactured hormone. It's plant-based phytoestrogens that the body recognizes. All the food and drink that we put inside our body is a message to our body. And we need to be putting in things that our body will recognize. So when we eat even ground flax, hemp seeds, chickpeas, raspberries, we are increasing the level of estrogen in our body. When we rest, we can increase the level of estrogen in our body because our body gets the opportunity, our adrenal glands get the opportunity to do the job that they're actually meant to do. We have the opportunity to support our brain health. And still, the first line, I hear so many women come to me and say, I'm really worried about my brain health. Well, if you read the research and you keep up to date with the research, the first line of defense for your brain health and to help prevent dementia is still exercise and food and nutrition. We need to be moving and we need to be eating the very best healthy fats. And supporting our brain in that way, and our antioxidants and supporting our brain in that way. And just in the last week, as science is changing, we learn that SSRIs, like our antidepressants, have not been working the way that we have been told they've been working. And in the same week, we learn that plaques might not actually be damaging. They are not the cause of Alzheimer's disease. So everything has just been blown open in this last week. And still within this whole environment and scenario, food and nutrition remain the first, with exercise, remain the best choice that you can make for your body, for your brain health, for your bone health, for your cardiovascular health, for balancing blood sugar levels, and for your hormones.
I agree. And also, it's what I always think is best, like, well, you're eating anyway. You're going to
Yeah,
be eating. It's not like you're doing. So just to eat differently
that's
is
true,
not,
Julie. I've never
it's
looked at it.
not
I've
like an
never
add-on.
looked at it.
It's not
Yeah,
like you're suddenly saying like, you've never gone outside and gone for a run, so I want you to add in a run. It's like, well,
yeah,
you're going to be eating anyway. So let's
yeah.
just change what you're
So let's
eating.
do it right.
Let's look at it. And also for a lot of people, like maybe the food frequency and maybe the amount, like the number, like my God, like the lost art of breakfast and lunch. It's just
Yeah, yeah,
um that's always really interesting.
yeah.
But people are, you're
Yeah,
going to be
and of course
eating
for
anyway.
intermittent fasting. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
And
makes me cross.
we have, I know there is science behind intermittent fasting. I have read all the science, and yes, it can prevent aging and slow down aging, and it supports the extension of your telomeres, and I know all of that. And yes, I think intermittent fasting is a wonderful thing in that respect, but it's not for midlife women who are already going through the process of hormonal change. In the same way as you would not ask your teen son in puberty to do intermittent fasting, you would never ask a pregnant woman to do intermittent fasting when she is growing a baby. She needs to eat when she wants to eat. You do not ask a perimenopausal woman to do, or you do not sell her on intermittent fasting. When you are through this process and your hormones have got a solid baseline and you are calm and you are relaxed, wonderful. Spend the rest of your life intermittent fasting. It fantastic. It'll keep you going, but not during perimenopause. This is when we need deep nurturing, deep nutrition, deep rest.
Definitely. And I think, and so much of that research, again, has not been done
It's
on
been done on
midlife
men.
women. It's been done on men, and then the women it has been done have not been done on midlife women. And it was interesting. There's and I support, like, I love that there's so much new research, and especially like I'm very interested in the health span kind of research right
Yes.
now for longevity, like, so health span as opposed to lifespan. And
Yes.
there's a lady called Dr. Cara Fitzgerald, and she has a book called Younger You, and I listened to her on a podcast recently. And she said, like, we didn't do any of this research on midlife women, just so you know. And
Yeah.
it occurred, and she said, we didn't do it because the hormonal fluctuations make the research harder for us. And we want
Yeah.
to get through phase 1 testing.
Yeah.
And to get through phase 1 testing, to get more funding so we can do it, we need to not have this, like, to invite the crazy levels.
Yeah.
And so this naturally occurring hormonal shift, when we
Yeah.
need the knowledge, there is currently a system of knowledge deficit.
Yeah.
And I'm actually in a beta test that I just, it was kind of pure luck through a guy called David Sinclair, who wrote the book Lifespan. So I'm going to
Right.
find out soon what my bio age is. And I'm on
Right.
a Q&A with him next week. And I'm going to actually ask how much of this research was done on midlife women.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
or maybe I'm going to be part of that ongoing research. I have no idea. So we'll see. But yeah, this food first. So I want to wrap it up a little bit because I know you and I could talk all day and I love it. So
All
what
day.
I know, because we're just like, so what are some, number one, what are the like 3 take home pieces of information? And then if you could share where people can find out more and follow you and learn from you and be guided by you.
So I think my 3 take homes are: your body is talking to you all of the time. Symptoms are not that there is something wrong with you. It's your body telling you that it wants your attention. And that's your indicator to step into a more empowered role around your health. Start researching and finding people like you or I that can help you and support you. Um, so that would be my number one. Number two would be that food and nutrition and exercise are still the first line when it comes to perimenopause, for having an impact on reducing your symptoms, for supporting your brain health, supporting your cardiovascular health, supporting your bone health. So that would be my number two. That despite all the research, despite the fact that hormone replacement is now available to you, your best choice and your first line defense is still the same old, same old. You are what you eat. Um, and then my third one, I think, is claim your desires.
Love it.
Start putting boundaries in and claim your desires. Ask for what you want. And this is hard for us. I see in the younger generations, it is easier for them to put themselves out there and ask for what they want. I think I'm hoping we're the last generation of good girls, and that we only get bad girls coming after. But yeah, step up, ask for rest, ask for help around the house. We're doing more housework and emotional load work in our homes now as working women than we were in the 50s when we were stay at home. So the workload at home has increased despite machines, and this is a pressure I think that we're putting on ourselves to be perfect, but have the perfect house and have the perfect home, but that's what it is. There's pressure on us to look a certain way. There's pressure on us to stay thin and have procedures to mold our bodies. We carry a lot of shame for the fact that we're aging when we should really be celebrating that we have all this knowledge and wisdom and that we're pretty rad people. But we can become kind of invisible in society. Um, so yeah, claim your desires. Um, Keep having sex. Keep doing the exercise you want to do. We're in a stage where for us it's use it or lose it. So the more you claim, the more you will hold on to as you age.
Absolutely. And I
Claim your
think that's
joy.
a,
Claim your
yeah,
happiness.
like I'm always about just like find your joy and find the joy that works for you. And what works for you has nothing to do with what might work for anybody else. We're very
Yeah,
bio individual and we all have our own stories and our own backgrounds, and stop being a body snatcher. Stop being
Yeah.
kind of like,
Yeah.
well, I want to be like that, so I'll therefore do that. And it's like, well, that may be the absolute opposite that you need. Like,
Yeah.
you can tell if you listen, you'll hear. And again, as you
Exactly.
say,
There's a little voice
attention.
inside, yeah,
Yeah.
that will
Yeah.
tell you what you want in your life, what you want to do, what you need more of, what you need less of, and you need to pay attention to that little voice and open up your thyroid and use your own voice and ask for what you want. And I
Absolutely. And where
recognize
can
there's
people?
privilege to that too, Julie.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
privilege to be
Yeah.
able to do that. But
Yeah.
I want that for as many of us, for all of us.
For sure. And where can people find you?
I am online I have a website at louisecarnutrition.com, and you can actually download a booklet of recipes there that
Nice.
might be your first baby steps.
Yeah.
And I send out my newsletter from there, and I've stepped away a little bit from social media,
Yeah. No need
but
to
I
be on
might
it.
be back
I
on
mean, it's
Instagram.
not. I mean, people can find you on your website and your email, and I think
Yes, that's where
I
the
think
recipes are. And then
that's
for
really
a lot of
solid.
the
Yeah.
work, a lot of the work that I do, like, I mean, I meet with a lot of women that have been to see a naturopath, and they're like, I have to give up dairy and I have to give up gluten and I don't know where to start. It starts with really good, solid recipes that you're comfortable making and that you'll
Yeah.
bring into your routine, and you'll eat consistently eat this healthy food. So jump on there and get a great recipe for a salad dressing with healthy fats, get a great recipe for a sweet potato breakfast muffin.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you're going to start, is enjoying life and claiming what you want to eat.
I think
Because
there's a courgette chocolate brownie recipe. Several of my
yes,
clients are like, oh, I batch make those.
yes,
I always send my clients to your
the
recipes.
chocolate zucchini.
The
Yeah,
chocolate zucchini one,
yeah.
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
winner.
I'm like, don't. Well, I'll calm down around food, but I get very excited about food
Oh,
as
you and me
well. But
both. I
my
don't
red
trust
lentil
people who aren't
and
into food.
lemon soup as well. I just adore that. I make so yeah, every baby step that you're going to take is going to it's going to taste delicious, and claim what you want for your health and for your life.
Love it. Thank you so much, Louise. A pleasure as always. And I will
You're
put
welcome.
everything and the links in the footnotes. And if you're listening, go and follow Louise, get on her email list, check her website, look at the recipes, and do that 1% change. And don't normalize it just because it's common. Take care. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the show. Remember to subscribe and leave a review, and let me know what resonated, what you liked, what it brought up, what you're curious about, and what you would like to hear. You can go to julieangel.com and you will find a bunch of great free resources there. There is the free Move More course, your free Movement Snacks guide, and if you are interested in reclaiming and increasing your physical strength and confidence so you can get your mojo back, be brave, adventurous, and age with grace, then message me via social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, or through my website, or email me at drjulieangel@gmail.com. That's drjulieangel@gmail.com, and let's set up a call. And until the next time, enjoy, stay curious, and I'm glad you enjoyed the show.